Oh, and I'm going to pass it to Jarrod from Mode 40, who's going to take over control here and walk us through a presentation. When Jarrod's done, there'll be lots of times for Q&A. Like I said earlier, we're going to, through the Q&A feature or the chat feature, you can throw us some suggestions of things that we can throw at AI to see what it comes up with. And really looking forward to this presentation. So with that, Jarrod, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great, thanks, Ron. I assume you can hear me. You can see my screen.
Yep.
Wonderful. So a bit more about me. My last role was global head of AI at Archer Daniels Midland, $100 billion Fortune 35 company. So I led a team of artificial intelligence engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and we basically applied AI to virtually everything that ADM had their hands in, from trucking to manufacturing to plant distribution, global supply chains, because it was an ingredient manufacturer, all the way down to understanding the human microbiome with the products that were being produced, cost efficiencies, compliance-related issues. So we had our hands full, and it was it was a really fun time. Prior to that, I was at Wells Fargo. I was a VP of artificial intelligence, primarily working in the fraud space. And before that, I was at IBM for 11 years, 5 of which was in the Watson Group, working on a lot of the early AI work there at IBM, especially around natural language processing, IoT work, blockchain. But I got my hands involved with many different external companies, Ford Motor Company, for example, Boeing, worked on the landing gear for them, Shell Oil, on the oil rigs in the middle of the ocean, so we were applying AI tools in many different areas. So that's where my experience comes from. I'll try and cover this topic for you guys at hopefully more of an approachable level. I know Ron said that most of you have experience in AI from a marketing perspective. I want to grow from that aspect. So hopefully what I cover will be interesting. And hopefully you learn something from this, especially maybe of how to apply AI within a manufacturing context, because I believe most of the participants on this call, either owners of companies or your executives within the companies themselves who do a lot of heavy industry type work, manufacturing, distribution, product design, and so on. So let's dive down into the rabbit hole. All right. Go on to the next slide. So this is a recent quote from Mark Cuban, and I think it's probably relevant. So he says, there are only 2 types of companies in this world: those who are great at AI and everybody else. If you don't know AI, you are going to fail, period, end of story. You have to understand it because it will have significant impact on every single thing that you do. There's no avoiding it. For those of you who have been watching the news, at least for the last year, and even longer now, since ChatGPT really hit the scene and people started really looking at this, there have been tremendous advancements in the AI space. The folks that are in the labs, working on this kind of technology, some of which is only beginning to be understood or even made available in the general industry. But the anticipation is huge. NVIDIA, for example, is now the 3rd largest market cap company in the world. I think they just hit 3 trillion as of today, and they make the processors, the GPUs, the graphical processing units, that from a computation perspective is what drives a lot of the AI work that's being developed. So there's that. There's another thing I would say, at least because I'm in AI and this is what I do, there is a tremendous amount of hype out there. You're all hearing it, you're seeing it. There's going to be a lot of disruption, a lot of promises being made, a lot of people saying they're doing AI where in fact they're actually doing statistics. Irregardless of all that hype you're going to see out there, I would say from a pure AI perspective, we are not hyped enough. There, I said it. So I said we are going to go down the rabbit hole. So I hope I hope you take that viewpoint home. We are going to see a tremendous amount of disruption in multiple industries out there with companies that use these kinds of tools. You're going to see a lot of advancements being made in manufacturing, specifically new kinds of materials being developed, how quickly things can be produced, generated on the fly, very personalized, and so on. So that's at the highest level. That's the AI marketing fluff. You're hearing it. I believe it's quite relevant and quite true. So let me go on to the next one. So overview of AI in manufacturing. So really AI in its current embodiment of what we call AI, it's a broad term that's everybody's putting everything under AI. Statistical methods, rule-based systems, anything that was computational based before, people are saying, oh, it's AI. So you got to take it from that perspective. If you take a step back and say, okay, really digital technology, AI is now the big thing, and everything is going to fall under AI. It's very much like when the internet was coming around back in the early 90s, when people were like, oh, the internet, and people had a lot of questions around it, like, it's fun, it could be interesting. But you've all seen what's happened over the last 30 years or so with the internet. It's the basis of almost everything that we do in terms of communication, how we operate, how our businesses operate. The AI space, because of what's happened in the last year, especially around generative AI, is probably going to dwarf what we've done with the internet in terms of how it's going to impact everything that we do. So back to manufacturing. Many of the things you've seen in the past, these kinds of tools, they enhance productivity and efficiency by doing the hard computational work that humans can do, but it would take them very, very long time to do, or it's just too complex and it just doesn't make sense to do it. So there's a lot of different kinds of tools and software programs out there for making sure that things that are produced are of a high quality, that the supply chain is intact, that shocks to the supply chain are anticipated and dealt with in a timely manner. Compliance and regulatory things are being documented appropriately. Your business customers or the general public who you sell to understands what you're manufacturing, when it's coming, how much the costs are, when delivery should be done, any kind of changes to their own requirements of what you're producing. These are complicated processes, and all these really great tools and techniques that have been around for a while are being either supplanted or enhanced with the latest in terms of AI capabilities. So optimizing supply chain management, that's a big one. That's been around for quite some time. Many of the algorithms that we use, many of the machine learning techniques have been around for a while, but now we've got more data. So the algorithms appear to be much more powerful on the surface, which they are because we have better data. And decisions are being made, and then we have a circular loop, if done appropriately, where these kinds of tools are going to get better as they're used more. Some of the key technologies: machine learning, computer vision, robotics, and automation. So machine learning, that's always been a very interesting perspective where people say, well, how can a machine actually learn? So I think I'm going to take some liberty with this, but the most simplest way to think about it is traditional software development has a software program, and it's basically you have an input, goes into the program, and you have an output, okay? And there's no change to the software. The software is intact, it's very rigid, deals with an input, has an output. Machine learning, in a sense, is that imagine data is now part of the code, okay? So you have an input into that code, and now you have an output, but that data remains part of the code, and now it's like it's learned, or it will adapt. There's a lot of really cool techniques around it, but that's essentially what machine learning is. I took some liberty with the description of it, but imagine the data is the code. So that's why if you put more data in and you manage it correctly, the machine or the tool is actually learning. Computer vision is obviously a large area in manufacturing because we have tools to be able to capture the visual input through manufacturing processes, and we're able to analyze that visual input to a high degree. Whereas imagine if you're only capturing data at like on a clipboard level, and you have 10 pieces of data that you're dealing with. Computer vision, it's virtually unlimited. You get millions of data points analyzed, streaming data coming in, especially off a manufacturing pipeline. And that's where robotics and automation comes in too. So we all know that there's a huge level of worker unavailability. or there's going to be fewer workers available who are skilled enough to do the kind of work that we need from a manufacturing perspective. So the robot industry is going to be taking off even more so. And a lot of that has to do with the new kinds of techniques of building robots and capabilities of building robots, but what robots can actually do nowadays. And I'll cover this later on with Agenic. I'll show you a demonstration of the actual brains that will go into these physical robots. But the point is that there is a tremendous amount of opportunity in the manufacturing space around AI. Okay. Ron, are there any questions so far?
No, sir. We're going to take questions at the end, I think. We're going to let you do what you do, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, I'll just keep going through it. If there's anything you want me to stop at or clarify further, I'll do the best I can. So one of the things with AI is because it's evolving rapidly, you're going to hear a lot of terminology out there, and there's a lot of ways to describe what AI is. The most recent approach to how to describe AI at the highest level is that AI is around perceiving, okay? The ability for these kinds of tools to perceive an environment. And within that perception of input and output and perceiving that, there's really two levels or two areas from side to side. There's deterministic AI and there's probabilistic AI. Everything within AI essentially falls in that space. Okay, deterministic AI is a lot of it's around rule-based systems, for example, meaning it is explicitly, that's the result. You've analyzed the data, here is the result. Okay, in terms of determining explicitly that is what you need to have out of the system. Now, probabilistic AI is, let's say you're doing forecasting. What's the probability of something occurring? What's the probability of something that needs to be changed or may occur if you're monitoring something that needs to be fixed? So all the algorithms, all the models that we use fall really in between those two types of categories, okay? So probabilistic, definitely we can use in predictive maintenance of the kinds of machines. Demand forecasting, because you're doing forecasting, very valuable with manufacturing. And then, so really that's the range, okay? Now let's cover generative AI. So I would say this, in November of 2022 is when ChatGPT really hit the mainstream. There are groups and laboratories obviously using this stuff for years, trying to develop these kinds of tools, but the general public really got their hands on it in November of 22. And I would say that's the first time people really got to see AI in action. I'm not talking about talking to Siri or, on your phone or Alexa through Amazon or getting recommendations on Netflix or a whole host of where AI has been used, but rather where people can interact with an AI system and see some sort of creative result being generated. And that's generative AI. The power of which has really exploded. Now everybody's throwing, I would say this, everything's being hit up with generative AI. All the vendors out there are saying we can do all sorts of great things, which they can. So generative AI is the ability for a system to generate something that didn't exist before. And then not in terms of doing a probability or a forecast or whatnot, deterministic, but rather you've seen it if you play with ChatGPT, generate text, generate a strategy document, help with creating a plan, help with writing an email. And it doesn't have to be pure text. It can be in any language out there too. It can be in code, because code is a language. It can be sound, it can be visual, it can be images. And this is what's really compelling about this technology, is that the applications can be vast when we're dealing with all those different kinds of components. So in terms of manufacturing, many of the leaders out there in the industry are saying, yeah, we can do a lot with generative AI, even in customer service for manufacturing. So let me play a quick clip just for fun. I think you can hear the sound, right? Let me bring this up in a different window.
Industrial automation, artificial intelligence is arriving just in time to backfill the severe shortage of skilled labor that constrains American manufacturing post-COVID. The traditional advantages of overseas manufacturing are disappearing, and a new generation of lower-cost, low-code, or no-code programmable robots are now available to multiple industries that simply can't hire skilled people today. But in more important tasks like welding, assembly, and inspection, they can replace low-cost overseas labor and keep consumer goods prices under control.
Did that sound come through, Ron?
Yes, it did.
All right, good. Okay. All right, so some of the major industry trends is around consumer-driven customization. This is where personalization, where people want a specific, I think many of your organizations deal with very custom-oriented type work, whether it's heavy industry manufacturing or not. But this isn't where something you're building 100 million or 10 million widgets or something exactly the same. You're building very custom-oriented type solutions or small batch solutions of a large machines or something. So we're going to see more of this because the expectations are from from your customers will be that, because your competitors will be providing those kinds of customizations. Smart machines, you're going to see more of these things being built that you can implement within your manufacturing facilities, whether they're small or they're just better connected in terms of a network. They're able to bring in more information that help you make better decisions. Essentially smart machines. And with that, you're going to see more hyper automation. And we'll get some of that into the AutoGenic work that I'll show you in a bit. So this is where you're able to communicate better and quicker with an actual AI machine to do things. And we're going to see a tremendous amount of competition increase and disruption within the industry and a whole bunch of brand new business models being developed. So I would say this, another point with AI. A lot of folks are scared, like they're going to lose their jobs. There will be disruption. There will be a tremendous amount of reskilling and retraining that will occur. But I would say this, we don't have enough people to do the kind of work that's going to be coming. Many companies, when they look at AI, they say, well, I can replace my current workforce with AI. Well, what they're doing is they're comparing that to their current output level, which is incorrect and the wrong way to view it. Their productivity could essentially increase dramatically, which will cause additional resources to be needed, human resources to do all the other type of work, the very difficult stuff that isn't being performed by AI. So I would always keep that in mind. You're going to need more people. You're going to implement some of these really great AI tools, machines, but it's going to increase your productivity. Your speed at which you're going to deliver is going to increase. There's going to be a lot of components that have to be looked at. The value of your company will essentially increase. That's why the folks that are playing with like OpenAI and Sam Altman from OpenAI is saying that the overall value that's being generated through the various economies doing this work will increase dramatically. Okay. What I want to do now is, just a couple days ago, the CEO of NVIDIA spoke over in Taiwan, and he made a couple of very interesting comments that I think are probably pertinent to the AI space. I know they are. And just for all of you, for your benefit, I want to play this clip. It's about 5 minutes, okay? And just listen closely to what he's saying, because it's relevant to the entire industry, especially around AI. Like I said, his company just hit $3 trillion in market cap. Stocks exploding, and he'll cover some of this. So I'm going to bring this up and I will play it for you. Here we go.
Welcome to the stage, NVIDIA founder and CEO, Jensen Huang.
Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, did an incredible presentation recently in Taiwan talking about the latest developments at NVIDIA. Here are the top most interesting highlights that jumped out at me from this conference. But first, take a listen to this brief clip where he talks about what AI is.
As AI takes over, make this your mantra. Let the robots do the work. Subscribe to stay on top of AI news.
A lot of people are failing to grasp what it is that we've created. When Jensen talks about an AI factory, the scale of what he's talking about is staggering. Take a listen.
ChatGPT came along, and something is very important in this slide. Here, let me show you something. this slide, okay, and this slide. The fundamental difference is this. Until ChatGPT revealed it to the world, AI was all about perception, natural language understanding, computer vision, speech recognition. It's all about perception and detection. This was the first time the world saw a generative AI. It produced tokens, one token at a time. And those tokens were words. Some of the tokens, of course, could now be images, or charts, or tables, songs, words, speech, videos. Those tokens could be anything. Anything that you can learn the meaning of. It could be tokens of chemicals, tokens of proteins, genes. You saw earlier in Earth 2, we were generating tokens of the weather. We can learn physics. If you can learn physics, you could teach an AI model physics. The AI model could learn the meaning of physics, and it can generate physics. We were scaling down to 1 kilometer, not by using filtering, it was generating. And so we can use this method to generate tokens for almost anything of value. We can generate steering wheel control for a car. We can generate articulation for a robotic arm. Everything that we can learn, we can now generate. We have now arrived not at the AI era, but a generative AI era. But what's really important is this. This computer that started out as a supercomputer has now evolved into a data center, and it produces one thing. It produces tokens. It's an AI factory. This AI factory is generating, creating, producing something of great value, a new commodity. In the late 1890s, Nikola Tesla invented an AC generator. We invented an AI generator. The AC generator generated electrons. NVIDIA's AI generator generates tokens. Both of these things have large market opportunities. It's completely fungible in almost every industry. And that's why it's a new industrial revolution. We have now a new factory producing a new commodity for every industry that is of extraordinary value. And the methodology for doing this is quite scalable. And the methodology of doing this is quite repeatable. Notice how quickly so many different AI models, generative AI models, are being invented, literally daily. Every single industry is now piling on. For the very first time, the IT industry, which is $3 trillion, $3 trillion IT industry, is about to create something that can directly serve $100 trillion of industry. No longer just an instrument for information storage or data processing, but a factory for generating intelligence for every industry.
All right. So let's get to the meat of the presentation. We're going to talk about AI agents and agentic systems. So what the CEO of NVIDIA was talking about and what's been alluding to is this new concept out there. It may change over the years depending on how people adopt it, but right now, imagine everything you've seen in like sci-fi movies and whatnot, where these agents themselves, these agentic systems, is artificial general intelligence, meaning that they're individual programs that can communicate with each other and perform tasks, whether actions or research or something. But these things are going to be used virtually everywhere. So imagine ChatGPT all of a sudden on steroids at 100 different levels or 1,000 different levels, interacting by itself as directed by humans to do certain things. So there's four main key things around agents that you want to really remember here, which hasn't happened before. It's the ability for these kinds of tools to self-reflect on what they're doing. Okay, so these agents can perform a task and determine whether or not the task it's performing is of good quality, of low quality, needs to be directed or performed in a different way. It can reflect on what its output is and say, you know what, let me try something else. Or I think that's going to be the right thing to actually produce. This ability is very powerful in itself. The other thing is for these kinds of these AI agents is to use tools, to use other software programs, for example, to go perform a task, whether it's like web search or web scraping or some sort of file save or create some sort of image or something. It can use different tools. The other one is that these agents can actually communicate with each other in various different languages, depending on how they're created. But from a human perspective, we can actually see these agents communicate to each other using natural language, which is very powerful because you can see these entire workflows done at a massive scale, but just by just a few agents. And the real key thing is the ability for these agents to be given a goal and to create a plan by themselves on how to reach that goal. Okay. Imagine prior to all of this, where if you were to develop a software system, you had to be very thorough in terms of how it's going along its happy path, alternative paths, anomalies, and all the other things. And you had to program this stuff and you had to test it. Now imagine a system, these tools can do that themselves and figure out on a massive scale the best way to achieve a goal and plan for it. So these four capabilities are what's really compelling. All right. So before I get into that, I'm actually going to show you an agentic system. Okay. Let's see. So what I've got here is I'm using AutoGen, which is an open source solution. It's basically just a user interface. There are many of these kinds of user interfaces that are available out there. These aren't production ready type things. Many of the stuff is being created as we speak. Some of the bigger houses like Google has its own and their own method of doing this. Microsoft has theirs. They are backing AutoGen right now, but it's only out in beta. There's a lot of open source projects out there that many of the open source developers are helping to contribute to. But the point is on this one, this AutoGen Studio, I've got a number of skills already built in here. Okay, these are the kinds of skills that these agents can go use, like generate an image, go fetch a profile from the internet, go get weather information, draw, save output to a disk, a whole bunch of different skills. I've also brought in a number of different models. On this example, I'm just going to use the latest Omni model from OpenAI, which is ChatGPT 4.0. I've got some agents themselves created. I've been trying different things. I've got a communication specialist. Okay. I've got an agent whose ability is just to communicate, write reports, for a specific audience. I have one that can actually create a user interface or design a user interface or tell the best way to go about creating a user interface. I've got another agent who is a data analyst who has skills to go out there and analyze data in a very, thoughtful way using the latest data analytical skills that are available out there. I have a supply chain expert. This is an agent that has the latest knowledge and best practices of how supply chains work on a big scale. Many of these things can be created in multiple different levels. I have a business strategy consultant agent. It has all the skills of a business strategy consultant. I've got a market research analyst, one that can go out there and research various things in the market. I have one with a data scientist background, another one with technical writer. So I've got all these agents. Now I've created a couple of workflows just to give them an idea to say, okay, you're going to go perform an act. Okay. So as what Ron was alluding to earlier, I'm going to just do a general agent workflow. Okay. Ron, you still there?
I am, sir.
I assume you can see my screen. I got AutoGen on the left.
Oh, yeah.
Got Anaconda on the right. So Anaconda is just, you can see the code and how it's thinking in the background if you're kind of like into the matrix. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to prompt a message to these agents. Okay, and these agents are going to take that message and then create a plan around it and figure out how to provide a response to my prompt. Now, remember how I said very much like you've got ChatGPT, you're very familiar with that kind of interface and you prompt it. Imagine this on a different scale where you've got all these various agents who are skilled in all specific areas and they're all working together to produce a result. These things don't have to just be an output here. They can be connected to various systems to actually perform an action on a system. So, Ron, you want to help me out here with a possible, let's see. Let me try something. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to say, agents, I want you to optimize the production scheduling for our manufacturing plant. Consider machine, availability, workforce capacity, and order deadlines to create efficient production plans that maximize throughput and minimize idle time. I'm going to say create it as an example of a fictional heavy equipment manufacturer. Now, this is not a fully developed system. I'm basically in an alpha mode right here, okay? So what's going on right here is I submitted a prompt, and all these agents are working on this task that I gave them. They're all communicating, making plans. On the right-hand side, we should start to see a bunch of code going through. There's actually a lot more going on in the background. And the other thing to keep in mind, let me see if I can bring this up. I'm currently, let's see, running at $1.50. So right now it's 21 cents more. Okay, it's executing some code. Or it's when it says execution failed, this is not a bad thing. This may mean it's trying to do something and it's going to self-reflect and try something else, or it's going to move on and use that as part of its output, saying, well, I tried this, it didn't work, and maybe something to keep in mind. Okay. So I know it's taking a little bit of time. I'm running this off my laptop. And this is a neat thing too. You're basically telling these agents to go perform something, and they're trying all sorts of different things. This is very different from just traditional software where you've got a set program, you put an input and you have an output. This thing is actively working. This is the great thing about where AI is going, because we're creating these artificial entities, these artificial synthetic employees that can perform these tasks for you. So my belief is it'll probably take another 30 seconds to a minute to complete, but we'll see. Let's see.
You've asked it a pretty loaded question, though. That's a big question.
That is a question. That is a big one. When Ron and I were doing this yesterday, but I was doing much smaller type questions, but I kind of wanted to beat this thing up to see what it would do. Which might be another key point, is that when we interact with these AI systems, it might be a good idea to be polite to them. I don't know. They have a long-term memory. I don't know. Yeah, this one is going for a while. I am curious on the output, because he did say, oh, there it is. All right. Okay, so what it did, I'm going to scroll up. And it said the execution of the script was successful. Okay, so I think what it did is it found a problem and said, the output indicates that order 3 is scheduled first on machine A as it has the earliest deadline. Order 1 is scheduled next to machine A. Order 2, okay, this simplified scheduling example does not fully account for all real-world complexities such as workforce shifts, machine maintenance. If you need to develop more detailed, realistic, okay, you needed more information. So I'm dealing, that was just the output of the overall. So what I did is I expanded on the couple of the agent messages below. So we had a user proxy agent to a primary assistant. They said, let's optimize this stuff. The primary agent said, okay, I created a plan here. Let's do some parameters. It actually wrote the code to do this. Okay. And it said, here's a script. Okay. The primary assistant says, oh, hey, I looked at the code. Guess what? You had a typo in it. It was self-reflecting and auditing its own code that it was developing. Here's the new updated code. Something didn't work. Okay. They reflected again, so let's try something else. Let's call it a machine. Okay, went back and forth. Okay, I know for many of you this probably isn't really applicable to this piece, but keep in mind, the whole purpose of this demonstration is just to show how agentic code can be given a task and these little synthetic employees of yours can go off and do them. Okay, we're at the very early stages of this kind of technology. So imagine many of the kinds of redundant type processes you have within your own organizations, things that you do, and the cost of hiring and finding employees and keeping them, working. But now we've got the ability to create synthetic employees, which you can scale up and down, mass produce. You can create an entire sales force online to do all sorts of great stuff, marketing agents, research assistants to find out what's happening in various markets, to provide you feedback on maybe a different market or opportunity you can go after. There's a lot of things that these kinds of tools can do. So Ron, are you going to help me on a different kind of one? You said something about laser.
Yeah, let's try a procedure for laser welding galvanized steel.
Okay. Let's see. Provide a plan that is compliant. All right, folks. You. Canada. And what else, Ron? What was the other piece?
Welding galvanized steel. That should give you some interesting health and safety perspectives.
Welding guidelines. Let me see, health and safety. Okay, I'll see what it comes up with.
Yep.
Okay. So again, these agents are off doing their work. I have a different workflow or a different set of agents I might pull in and try it and see what kind of agents that are more focused on compliance and legal work.
Do you create the agents, Jarrod, or are they something that's a library out there that you grab?
You create them, but I fully expect people will be creating libraries of agents that you can either go buy or sell or whatever. All these agents here I created. So I used AI to create AI in essence. Here I can show you. So this is the code for a project manager. Mm-hmm. Here's a little piece of code to do a plot diagram. Here's the code to save to a disk. This is the code for web scraping. This is a code for an AI software engineer developer. It's basically pulling a whole bunch of different skills available on GitHub. This one's a technical writer. It follows the same kind of process. So the creation of these things really isn't that difficult. However, this is also very early stage. Okay. Does
that also set the fence around where it goes to find data to solve the question that you're asking?
Depending on what you tell it, they can be you code the agent to be very specific, saying you will go to these kinds of websites, or you can say search the internet. It'll make stuff up depending on what kind of range you give it, guidelines or constraints you tell it to operate in. This is the cool thing about this. You can create these agents very, very quickly using generative AI, but then we have to go through and really, figure this stuff out, test them, make sure that the results are accurate. And we're at such at the very early stage of this kind of work that we're going to be learning a lot. And businesses are going to be created around these kinds of tools to do exactly what you said, create libraries. Synthetic resource companies are probably going to be created to know where their agents have full expertise. They've been vetted. They know the latest kind of tools. So let's take a look at these results here. So the search results do not directly address the specific regulations for laser welding in Canada. However, they do touch on related topics. So since the search did not yield specific documents, we should take the following steps. Consult the Canadian Standards Association. This is a review occupational health safety. Each Canadian province, I guess, has it. Check with the Canadian Center of Occupational Health and Safety. Okay. Refer to International Electrotechnical Commission standards. Consult. So what it did here is it basically, imagine if you're a worker in your company and you're saying, I need to go do this research. Okay. And that, the person's off doing their work. Well, these kinds of tools can do it, get them much further along very quickly and provide, guidelines or like an instruction of what they should do. So that's just one example. But the real beauty of this thing is when these things actually start performing tasks within your company, performing the action, they analyze it, they do the results, and they actually execute on what they're doing, which could be scary in itself because we need to make sure we have the human in the loop. So it could open up a whole can of worms, or it can be very, very valuable. So, okay. That's the demonstration of some of these things. Now, again, agents themselves will probably look very different. This is just a simple open source interface. But the general idea is you can see that you can tell you can create a whole bunch of agents, and you can have these agents go off and perform tasks for you. This is the foundation or the basic foundation of what's going to happen with artificial general intelligence. And this will also become the basis of what's going to go into a lot of physical robots, the brains in these robots that you're going to be using in manufacturing facilities. So you're seeing it here, folks. This is the latest and the newest stuff. So let me go back to the presentation.
So just Tyler's asking, are you able to assign managing agents?
Yes, absolutely.
To prompt other agents to undertake tasks.
Absolutely. So imagine I have a product manager agent. Let me see, I'm going to build this up. Agents. I have an auditor. I have an assistant. You can have a CEO. Imagine any role or responsibility that's currently defined within a business. You could essentially create an agent for that. You can have an agent that all they do is they manage other agents. They assign them tasks. They develop project, pipelines. They make sure things are up to capacity, or they're, So yeah, it could be very matrix. It could be hierarchical. It could be more of a collaborative. All sorts of different ways. So the field's wide open on this. Again, it's any kind of role or responsibility that currently exists or may exist in the future can be, in essence, made into an agent.
Okay. Excellent.
So there's a term in, say, like agent workforce planning or synthetic employee workforce planning. So, or as yourself, imagine the skill set that you have as an individual for your company. Most of you probably don't have enough time in the day to get all your work done. Imagine you creating agents that have some of your skill set, and now you're directing them. These aren't agents that only work, a few hours a day or whatever, like an assistant. These things can work 24/7, and you can upskill these things. They can be with you forever,
Wow.
So a lot of potential here. Okay, so future trends. So a little space image here because, maybe we'll go to Mars. So manufacturing, again, this space is exploding in terms of new types of things that are being created, new types of metals, new kinds of research, material sciences, advancements made in all sorts of different approaches of how we do things. 3D printing, I think, is going to be a huge thing in a lot of different areas. And then AI for energy efficiency. That's another big one because we know AI is going to be a big energy suck. So, but hopefully we figure out new ways to harness energy or spread energy around or use energy and be more efficient in that way. So, all right.
Cool.
That's any Q&A?
Yeah, we've got some questions coming in here. So Jean-Marc is asking, why would you have specified agents instead of just general jack of all trades, and why limit the skill sets?
That is a good question. That's like the assumption saying Chat GPT essentially is what you said. For example, is Omni version. Now imagine the kind of input, the kind of prompting you have to do at a very general sense. Okay, if you have specialized agents, that kind of prompting doesn't have to be at that at a very detailed level. You can put a much more generic type prompt in, which enhances that agent says, "Oh, I know I'm an audit agent. I will do auditing work." And so it depends on, you're trying to eliminate the amount of input that you have to give in order to generate the kind of output that you want. And that's why you've got all these specialized agents. Now, the other thing is maintaining a giant LLM, for example, with all the skill sets is, it looks like we can do it, but that's just going to be really resource intensive. Whereas these little tiny agents, maybe you need to have an agent that operates on an edge device, very low computational or energy consumption, and it needs to be very specific. So that's how I would view it. And that's why you want to have individual agents, because they're also probably easier to really understand and tweak and put constraints around and monitor. And just like any role or responsibility within your company, I would say it's perspective. You know, you could say your entire company is a single agent, right? But it's perspective and how we manage and monitor these things.
Okay, so while we're answering some of these questions, if any of you out there have something you want to throw at AutoGen, type it in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get that going on the side here. So John is asking, given your extensive experience in AI, what do you see as the most transformative application of AI agents in manufacturing that leadership should prioritize today?
I would say as of right now, well, there's probably a couple things there. You're going to see a lot of changes happening rapidly. Okay. I would say, don't think you're falling behind. Okay. Because everybody's basically, we've all been reset. We're all at pole position right now. Okay. So nobody's been doing this and they're super ahead of the game. We're all there right now. But the lowest hanging fruit for many manufacturers, probably just around your own customer service and understanding your business. Customer service is a big one. Understanding your market, being able to field phone calls. That's probably the most mature in the very short time that we've had so far in this space. That's applicable to businesses that they can readily tackle. And that's also putting really special, these kinds of chatbots on your own website, for example, to handle customer calls, demands, queries. I'd say that's probably the easiest and most effective and probably the most beneficial for most companies right now. However, everything else that's coming are going to be coming very quickly. So I'd say keep your eyes open, because it might be things you can implement internally. So, on the shop floor.
It was interesting. I was at a conference yesterday where they were talking about future thinking technologies and the idea of having somebody on your executive team, assign somebody on your executive team whose sole job it is to look at technologies like this and figure out how they fit within your business. Because
Yeah.
having your employees try to do this off the side of their desk along with everybody else isn't going to get you the full advantage than having somebody focused at it from a corporate perspective. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. One of the things that we offer is the whole chief AI officer, like a fractional person.
Mhm.
I would say this, even Mark Cuban brought it up. You've got to realize this is going to be bigger than the internet. Okay. We're at the very early stages of this thing. It is transforming fast. It's going to disrupt virtually every business out there. Every industry out there is going to be affected by this. And we're seeing, the leaders of some of these top companies saying, yeah, we're seeing this happening. The other side of that is we're all seeing a lot of the hype, and people are going to get tired of the hype. But that doesn't mean that the technology is slowing down or changing. It is moving ahead very quickly. So you've got to have somebody who has their pulse on the latest, advancements being made, and they're going to have a tough time doing it because there's so much activity going on. But they've got to take that leadership perspective and say, this is how we're going to navigate this space. These are the kinds of people we're going to bring involved, and these are the kinds of things we're going to monitor. And this is how we're going to operate in, our industry going forward. So you got to have really good, strong leadership, which you don't want to put this off on some assistant who's going to write your report. You've got to have somebody who's part of your leadership team, because it's going to be
I think it's part of our problem sometimes too, is that these big consulting firms will come in and say, hey, we're going to write you an AI strategy and those kinds of things, where if you have somebody focused on your management team, even fractionally, on leading technologies like this and how they affect your business, you can get far further, far faster.
Yeah, you're going to, I've worked with many of the big consulting companies very closely over the years. And I would definitely say you need to establish somebody internally in your own company whose role is this, or however you can do it, or bring in somebody who is going to be dedicated to your company, who isn't going to create a bunch of PowerPoint slides. Sorry, but
yeah, no, I hear you. So while we got one other question here. Feel free, anybody that has questions. I'm going to ask you to put something here into AutoGen. Is create a test plan for air brake compliance for a Class 8 truck in Canada. 8, use 8, please.
I'm sorry, what?
8 instead of A.
Oh, Class 8.
Let's see what comes up with. Okay, so Nestor is asking, how is this system, agents and company data, that they act on, secured from outside intrusion?
Yeah, security is obviously a big issue with data. It depends on how you build it. There are a lot of like Microsoft Azure, for example, is a very robust, secured environment. AWS, same thing, the big houses. There are a lot of smaller companies who offer solutions, which you probably need to be more, thoughtful of. It comes down to how much you're willing to spend on security and what you're trying to offer. You're going to hear the boogeyman everywhere. There's all sorts of examples of bad things happening. But there are tools and techniques and people who know how to approach these things to build very secured environments for your business. This is also why you need to have somebody in your company who knows how to evaluate and determine what the best solutions are for your company, where you should go, or have a trusted advisor or a partner in that space. So yeah, there's a lot to it. Security is definitely huge.
So what did they come up with here?
Let's see, creative test plan. Okay, review applicable regulations. Familiarize yourself with the National Safety Code Standard 13, Part 2. I don't know what that is. Pre-inspection. verify the truck test air brake components, check for any visible leaks, service brake test. Okay, we're testing everything out. Park brake test. I don't know anything about trucks, guys, so.
Yeah, I kind of expected it to go to CMVSS 121, which is a Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standard. Well, here, certification, NSC. Okay, it's kind of interesting. It didn't pick up Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standard.
Again, these set of agents aren't defined to do that, so they're doing the best they can. Which that's the whole point of. If you submitted something like this to ChatGPT, it may or may not come up with something similar, but these things are trying to do the best they can. So if you created ones,
don't give work to accounting that the engineer should do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try something else.
While you're doing that, I'm going to fire another question at you here. Okay. In your experience, what's the greatest reasons for hesitancy in adoption of AI? What are some things that can ease that hesitancy?
That's a good one too. I would say this. The speed at which AI is being developed is accelerating and developed in terms of new capabilities. Sometimes it makes sense just to sit and wait. Okay. However, the risk in an environment such as this is going to be very, very difficult for companies who don't do anything. So, here's a great example. Bloomberg went out and invested $10 million on a financial services solution based on ChatGPT 3.5. They invested $10 million because they saw the potential solution for this thing. And then when ChatGPT 4.0 came out, 4.0 was better at it than what the $10 million that Bloomberg put in just a few months. So that's a big house doing a big thing, and the industry, just this baseline industry standard tool, was better at it just after a few months. So
in emerging technology, you're always going to get, it's a horse race, right? And you're going to have horses lead and horses fall back, and then they'll get the lead again and that sort of thing, right? So
that's right. So it's I ran that same query in here with using a completely different set of agents.
Yeah, and this looks more like what I would have expected.
Okay. The agents that I pulled are auditing compliance agents, but specifically for a different industry. So I'm still surprised they provided this kind of. It looks much more detailed and robust.
Yep.
So you can see, depending on the kind of agents you use, they'll provide. If you're going to use agentic technology, you want to have agents that are built for that use. That was the whole point of why don't you build one big giant one? Because it's like having employees that are very specialized in sales or marketing, for example, or compliance or regulatory, and you train them to be very, very good at that. So, and these things can learn over time. They can learn your business, what's relevant. They'll have better access to information. And imagine these agents are synthetic employees that you will always own, and they get better and better and smarter, and they provide better results, essentially work faster, work cheaper, So,
like for most of us that are just throwing stuff at ChatGPT, we're not thinking agents, right? We're just throwing it at the big, internet worldwide, and here, give me your best.
Yeah, the big
kind of equated to some of the early stuff we did at ChatGPT, where write a memo to an employee that's got smelly feet, kind of thing, just to see what it would do. And well, the whole idea of agents, like if I'm a company and I want the AI to find its information only within a certain data set internally to service my clients, that's through the agents, or is that through? How do you restrict where it goes and where it doesn't go to give answers?
It's the same thing with any technology: access rights, security rights, constraints in which the agent is operating in, checks and balances. Like RPA technology, robotic process automation, which I'm sure many of you have been pitched to over the years. You can probably have it internally. It's the same kind of concept. Now, the technology that we've had for many, many years works. You know, a lot of this new technology, like these agent tools, especially using generative AI, can effectively be done much quicker in terms of programming. They appear to be much more powerful, and that's what's compelling, because we're able to create systems that are able to do much more things in a quicker scale without a whole lot of effort and work, compared to these massive technology, huge code infrastructures that were developed over the years. And this has all just happened in the last year or two, where it's really starting to take hold. So we're starting to begin to see the beginning of how we can build solutions at scale that are better, more powerful, and so on. Kind of goes back to that other thing of, what should we do here? Should we just wait? Are they just going to have something new in a year? Well, maybe not, but that's why you need to really be aware that AI, as an umbrella term, is going to affect everything out there.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a company, I'm interested in exploring what AI can do for my company.
Hmm.
What's your suggestion? I have no capabilities today other than emails about smelly feet and employees and stuff like that, because I've only just played around with it.
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
You need to find people who are familiar in the space, trusted partners. There are vendors. Even the work that I do is the same thing. As I come into a company and we understand what it is you're trying to achieve and provide you options. I would say this also. My own personal belief is this kind of technology doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be expensive. And you can take a bite of the apple with using Excel, for example. There are some really cool capabilities in Excel right now that can do a lot of tremendous AI type work that people aren't even aware of. You can bring in, upscale your own internal resources to start playing around with this stuff, and give them, allow them to explore and try some of these new things. This is where you need to have somebody who can help you understand that, hey, you don't have to go throw a bunch of money at this, huge solution unless you're already there. But rather, how do you get people in your own organization to become familiar enough with what AI can or cannot do and how it can be applied to your business? Because they probably already know what the real issues are in your company. And if given the right tools, it may already be tools you already have on your desktop that they can play around with. The barriers to entry to this space have dropped so dramatically, and we're continuing to fall, that you can go out on YouTube and basically figure out how to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with AI. A lot of coders and developers out there are like, shoot, we basically programmed ourselves out of a job because this stuff can do so much of what we were doing before. And that goes back to what I was saying again, where even with all those things being said, with all the disruption that's going to happen in many different areas, we don't have enough people to do the work that's going to be coming towards us. And AI is going to be that huge thing that's going to be driving a lot of this stuff. So I guess to really answer that question is reach out, ask the questions, say, hey, I don't know where to begin. I have a company, we are profitable, we understand, we have our customers and clients, but we don't know where to start with this stuff. We think we're behind. We're doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. My first customer or client, when I put out my shingle, was a 120-year-old manufacturing company here in Kentucky, a family-owned business. And they're pretty excited about what can be done for them. They have 80-year-old steel press machines, and they manufacture bands and tags and all sorts of stuff. They've been around a long time, but they're taking a bite of the apple.
Wow,
they're excited. So
good stuff. Good stuff. Well, this has been really good. I don't see any other questions coming through. So yeah, this has been fascinating. Kind of makes you want to go out and get a subscription for Microsoft Copilot and just play it and see what it'll do, right? And then kind of catch the fire and then see just understand the possibilities and then bring in the experts to, to confirm whether or not, or to confirm what you should be doing, right?
yeah. Yep.
No,
Take a bite of the apple.
Yeah, I can't help thinking, when you talk AI and agents and programs, it just leads me to Morpheus and Neo and the Matrix. I just can't, you can't get away from that. John is asking, does Mode 40 offer service in this AI space? I would assume you do.
Yes, that's what I do. That's what Mode 40 does.
So in Manitoba, would they contact you or would they contact Cam?
They would contact Cam.
Okay. So it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Cameron at mode40.com, correct? Would that be the right address? There it is. Look at that. Look at that. You were prepared. I love it. So, yeah, I know the Mode 40 guys are active in our community. They're doing an awful lot of work in Manitoba. And I heard wind of a big engagement that with one of the big manufacturers here in town that they're working on. So this has been exciting. Thank you very much for doing this. Really do appreciate it. And if any of you have any questions for the good folks at Mode 40, feel free to reach out and schedule a visit.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for the opportunity. I hope everybody got something out of this. So,
all right. No, thanks so much, Jarrod. Do appreciate it.
all right. Thanks. All right. Cheers.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.